My name is Dana. I'm 26. At 19, my parents threw me out because I refused to drain my savings for my sister's European vacation. Within a week, every relative I had was told I was in rehab. I didn't correct them. I just disappeared. 7 years later, a hospital administrator sent me a medical waiver to sign for my father. I sat in a plastic chair, flipped to page 4, and my hands went flat on the paper. My name was the beneficiary, not my sister's. Mine, signed 3 days before he had me erased from the story he'd been telling for 7 years. I didn't cry. I folded the document, slid it into my bag, and asked for copies of every filing from the last 18 months. What I found in that stack ended the lie in front of the people who'd believed it longest. When I laid those pages on my aunt's kitchen table last Sunday, 3 people stopped defending my father before I reached the second page. 2 of them haven't answered his calls since. Before I go on, take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story speaks to you. Drop your location and local time in the comments. Now let me take you back to the night my mother handed me my own bag and said, "Your sister has always deserved more than you." I was 19 years old, and I had $8,142 in a savings account at First National Bank on Hawthorne Street. I knew the exact number because I checked it every Friday after my double shift at the distribution center. I was saving for a used car so I could stop taking 3 buses to work. That was the plan. A 2012 Honda Civic, silver with under 100,000 miles. I'd been watching the listings for 6 months. I came home at 11:47 p.m. The porch light was off, which was strange. My mother always left it on for me. I remember the key sticking in the lock. I remember the hallway smelling like vanilla candles and something else, something sharp and urgent. My mother was sitting on the living room couch with my duffel bag open on the floor in front of her. My sister, Chelsea, was in the kitchen doorway, eating yogurt out of the container. She was 22. She dropped out of community college twice and was currently finding herself through a series of part-time jobs she kept leaving. "Dana," my mother said, "sit down." I didn't sit. I looked at my bag. My clothes were in it, my toothbrush, the photo album my grandmother had given me before she died. "What's going on?" "Chelsea has been accepted to a program in Florence," my mother said. "It's a gap-year experience, cultural immersion. She leaves in 3 weeks." I looked at Chelsea. She licked the yogurt spoon and shrugged. "It's for my mental health," she said. "Dr. Patterson thinks I need to get away from the stress here." Dr. Patterson was the therapist my parents had been paying for since Chelsea was 16. I'd never been to therapy. I couldn't afford the copay. "That's great," I said. "I'm happy for you." "The program costs $7,800, my mother said, "plus airfare and spending money. You're going to cover it." I laughed. I actually laughed. It came out wrong, too high and too loud. "I don't have that kind of money." "You have $8,000 in savings," my mother said. I checked. The room went quiet. I could hear the refrigerator humming. I could hear Chelsea scraping the bottom of the yogurt container. "You checked my account. You're my daughter, I have access." She said it like she was explaining whether. "Chelsea needs this, Dana. She's been struggling. You know she's been struggling. You have your job, you have your routine. You don't understand what it's like to need something for your soul." I looked at the hallway. My father was standing in the shadows by the bathroom door. He was wearing his work shirt, unbuttoned at the collar. He was looking at the floor. "Dad." He didn't move. He didn't speak. I'd seen this before, the silence that meant he wouldn't stop what was coming. "I'm not giving you my savings," I said to my mother. "That's my car money, your sister has always deserved more than you." She said it flat, without anger, like she was reading a grocery list. "She's sensitive. She's creative. She's not built for the world the way you are. You can work. You can grind. You can start over. She needs this chance." Chelsea walked past me to the couch and sat down next to our mother. She put her head on my mother's shoulder. I knew she'd say no, Chelsea whispered, loud enough for me to hear. She's always been jealous of me. That's not, I started. My mother stood up. She picked up my duffel bag and held it out to me. You can leave tonight or you can leave tomorrow after you transfer the money. Those are your choices. I looked at my father again. He was gone. The bathroom door clicked shut. I took the bag. I didn't transfer the money. I walked out of that house with $8,142 in my account and the clothes I'd packed for a weekend trip I never took. I slept in my car that night in the parking lot of a 24-hour Walmart on Route 9. I kept the engine off to save gas. It was March, and the cold came through the windows in layers. That was the first night. I lasted 6 nights in the Walmart parking lot before a security guard knocked on my window and told me I had to move along. I drove to a rest stop off I-95 where truckers parked for the night. The lights stayed on all night. The bathroom had running water. I learned which corners of the lot had the weakest wind. On the 7th day, I got a text from my Aunt Patricia. Hope the rehab center is treating you well. We're all praying for you, sweetheart. I read it 3 times. I was sitting in my car with the seat reclined, eating peanut butter crackers from a vending machine. The cracker dust was still on my fingers. I called her. The phone rang 4 times before voicemail. Patricia, it's Dana. I'm not in rehab. What are you talking about? She didn't call back. I texted my cousin Michael, who I'd played with every summer at my grandmother's house in Vermont. He read my message and didn't respond. I checked his social media. He'd posted a photo of his dog that morning. He was active. He was choosing not to answer. I drove to a library in a town 20 miles away where no one would recognize me. I used a computer for an hour. I searched my name. Nothing. I searched my mother's name. Nothing. I searched Chelsea's name and found her new post, a photo of her holding a brochure for the Florence program captioned, "Finally taking care of me. Self-care blessed." 300 likes. My mother had commented, "You deserve every beautiful thing." I went back to my car and sat with the engine running. The gas light came on. I had $7,981 left in my account. I remember the exact number because I checked it again, like touching a wound to make sure it still hurt. That night, my phone buzzed again. Another aunt. Then a family friend my mother knew from church. The same words over and over. Praying for your recovery. So brave of you to get help. Your mother is so strong. They had built a story around my absence. A story where my mother was the hero, Chelsea was the wounded bird, and I was the broken thing that had to be removed. The truth that I'd been thrown out for refusing to fund my sister's vacation would have made them look like what they were, so they gave the relatives something cleaner, something shameful that no one would question. I thought about driving back. I thought about walking into my aunt's living room and saying, "Look at me. Do I look like an addict? Here's my bank statement. Here's what they wanted. Here's what they took." But I could already hear it. "Dana, you're in denial. That's what they said you'd say." I changed my number that night. I bought a prepaid phone at a gas station with cash. I drove west until I hit a city where the cost of living was low enough that my savings could stretch. I found a room in a house with 3 other women, all older than me, all busy with their own survival. No one asked where I came from. No one asked about my family. I got a job within 48 hours. 2 jobs, actually. Days at a call center, nights at a warehouse. I worked 6 days a week. On Sundays, I slept and did laundry at a laundromat where the dryers cost 75 cents for 20 minutes. I didn't cry about my parents. I didn't let myself think about them at all. I thought about my bank balance. I thought about the Honda Civic I was still going to buy, even though I didn't need it anymore, even though the dream had become something else. I thought about the number going up. At night, sometimes I would wake up and not know where I was. The room was small and dark and smelled like someone else's cooking. I would lie still until I remembered I was safe. I was alone. No one knew where to find me. That was the trade I made. They got to keep their story. I got to keep myself. 7 years. I need you to understand what that means. I was 26 when the call came. I had a one-bedroom apartment with a window that faced a brick wall, and I didn't care because the lease was in my name only. I had $34,000 in savings, a 2016 Honda Civic with 89,000 miles, and a job as an operations coordinator at a logistics firm where my supervisor knew my work, but not my history. I had not spoken to anyone in my family since the night I left. I had not been home, I had not checked social media. I had built a life from the assumption that they were dead to me and I was dead to them. The call came on a Tuesday in March. The hospital administrator's voice was professional, slightly hurried. "Ms. Brennan, this is Westbrook Medical Center. We're trying to reach you regarding Harold Brennan. You're listed as his emergency contact and medical proxy." I sat down on my kitchen floor. The tile was cold through my jeans. "There's been a mistake," I said. "I'm not his emergency contact. According to our records, you were designated 3 days ago as his primary medical proxy and sole beneficiary. The forms were filed with our office in January of 2019, but they were only activated when he was admitted last week." January 2019. 3 days before my mother handed me that duffel bag. "I'll need you to come in to sign some waivers," she said, "and to discuss his care options. His current condition requires decisions about aggressive treatment versus comfort care." I didn't go that day. I didn't go the next day. I sat in my apartment and I thought about my father choosing me in secret and then watching me walk into the dark. I thought about him knowing where I was supposed to be legally, while my mother was telling everyone I'd been carted off to rehab. On the 4th day, I drove to Westbrook. I wore a blazer I hadn't worn since my job interview. I sat in a plastic chair in an office that smelled like industrial cleaner and old coffee. The administrator was named Gloria Chen. She had a stack of papers ready for me. "Most of this is standard," she said. "Medical proxy acknowledgement, HIPAA release, financial responsibility waiver." She slid them across the desk. "Page 4 is the beneficiary designation. You'll want to review that carefully before you sign anything." I flipped to page 4. My name, Dana Marie Brennan. Sole beneficiary of life insurance policy number 40 for 879921 and of all remaining estate assets. Signed by Harold Brennan. Dated January 14, 2019. 3 days. I put my hands flat on the paper to stop them from shaking. Gloria Chen was saying something about his condition, about the sister who had been calling daily demanding updates, about the mother who had tried to access his records and been denied because she wasn't the proxy. "Ms. Brennan, do you need a moment?" "I need copies," I said, "of everything, every filing from the last 18 months, every financial document connected to his care. I want to see where the money's been coming from and where it's been going." She hesitated. "That's an unusual request." "I'm his medical proxy," I said. "That gives me the right to review all records related to his care and financial standing." "Correct," she nodded slowly. "Then I want everything. And I'm not signing anything until I have it." I didn't tell her why. I didn't tell her about the $8,142 I'd saved at 19, or the duffel bag, or the 7 years of silence. I just sat there with my hands still pressed flat against the paper that proved my father had known exactly what he was doing. He had anchored his survival to me while letting them call me an addict. He had made me responsible for his ending while pretending I didn't exist. I wanted to know what else he'd been hiding. Gloria Chen called me back in 48 hours. The stack she handed me was thicker than my fist. Bank statements, credit reports, mortgage documents, medical billing histories, insurance correspondence. I took it to my car and didn't open it until I was parked behind a grocery store 3 miles away, where no one from the hospital would see me. I started with the bank statements. My parents had a joint account at the same credit union they'd used since I was small. In January 2018, the balance was $12,400. By January 2019, it was $847. I flipped through the pages, watching the numbers fall. $3,200 to Chelsea Brennan, Florence Program. $1,800 to Chelsea Brennan, airfare. $4,500 to Chelsea Brennan, housing deposit. Then smaller amounts, regular as breathing, $400, $600, $800, all marked transfer to Chelsea. The second mortgage paperwork was dated March 2019. They'd borrowed against the house to cover what my savings would have paid for. The interest rate was predatory. The monthly payment was more than my mother's part-time office job brought in. I kept reading. Credit card statements with $18,000 balances. A personal loan from an online lender at 22% interest. Medical bills in collections. The house, which my grandparents had paid off in 1987, now had $140,000 in debt against it. And the transfers to Chelsea never stopped. In 2020, there was $2,400 for Chelsea business startup. In 2021, $3,600 for Chelsea car repair. In 2022, $5,000 for Chelsea emergency rent. Each time, the account dipped lower. Each time, a new credit line appeared to cover the gap. My father's income had been fixed since his factory closed in 2015. He'd been driving a delivery van for a local pharmacy, $34,000 a year. My mother made $22,000 part-time. Together, after taxes, they might have cleared $42,000. The debt service alone was eating $38,000 of that. They were drowning, and they were still sending Chelsea money. I found the medical records next. My father's first cardiac event was in October 2023. Minor, treated and released. The second was in January 2024, more serious. A stent. The bill was $47,000 after insurance. They'd paid $800 of it. The rest went to collections. The third event, the one that put him in Westbrook, was 3 weeks ago. Massive. He'd coded twice in the ambulance. The current bill was already at $89,000 and climbing. I sat in that grocery store parking lot for 2 hours. The sun went down. The automatic lights in my car turned on. I didn't move. My father had made me his proxy and beneficiary in January 2019 because he'd known. He'd looked at the numbers and seen where they were headed. He'd known Chelsea would never pay a bill. He'd known my mother would sign anything to keep the peace. He'd needed someone responsible to clean up the mess he was making. So he'd chosen me, secretly, while letting them destroy my name to protect their own. The hypocrisy wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was the calculation. He'd weighed his options. He'd looked at his wife, his golden daughter, his dwindling resources, and he'd made a decision. I was the backup plan, the emergency fund, the responsible one who would handle the hard parts while they played out their fantasy. He'd never contacted me, not once in 7 years. He'd let me believe I was dead to them, let me build a life on that assumption while keeping me legally tethered to his disaster. I drove home. I spread the papers on my kitchen table. I made coffee and didn't drink it. I sat there until 3 a.m., reading every line, learning my family like a case study in slow-motion collapse. The next morning, I called Gloria Chen. "I need one more thing," I said. "I need to know who's been paying for his care so far." She hesitated. "There have been discussions. Your sister has been calling daily, asking about policy limits and discharge timelines. Your mother has been trying to arrange a payment plan based on your father's income, but the hospital's financial assistance office has flagged the account for review. They believe there may be undisclosed assets. Undisclosed assets. Me, I was the undisclosed asset. Has anyone offered to pay anything? Not yet, she said. They've been asking when the insurance will run out. I hung up and looked at the papers. I looked at the beneficiary form with my name on it, signed 3 days before my exile. I looked at the second mortgage, the credit cards, the endless transfers to Chelsea. I understood what my father wanted. He wanted me to use the life insurance, $50,000 I found in the policy documents to pay for his care. He wanted me to step in as the responsible daughter, the one who'd been found and rehabilitated, and fix what they'd broken. He wanted me to save them. Again. Forever. I folded the papers and put them in a file box. I didn't sign the waiver. I didn't sign anything. I started making phone calls of my own. The call came from my Aunt Patricia on a Thursday evening. I was sitting at my kitchen table with the file box open, the beneficiary form spread in front of me like a map of my father's cowardice. "Dana," she sounded tentative, like she was testing whether the number still worked. "It's Aunt Patricia. I heard you found that you're doing better." I didn't correct her. I let her believe whatever story she'd been told. "I'm fine," I said. "What do you need?" "Your mother told me you've been contacted about your father's care." A pause. "She said you're reluctant to help, that you're still angry." "Did she tell you why I'm angry?" Another pause, longer. "She said you have a history of difficulty, that you struggled with substances, that you left the family rather than get help. She said this is your chance to make amends, to step up and be the daughter they need now." I looked at the papers on my table. The second mortgage. The credit card statements with Chelsea's name in the memo lines. The medical proxy form signed 3 days before my exile. "Patricia," I said, "do you remember when I left?" Your mother said, "What did I say? Did I ever call you? Did I ever explain?" She was quiet. "You changed your number, no one could reach you." No one tried very hard. I could hear her breathing. I could hear a television in her background, someone laughing at a joke. "Your father is dying," she said finally. "The doctors say he needs decisions. Your mother is overwhelmed. Chelsea is. Chelsea, they need you, Dana. They need someone responsible." Responsible. The word my father had used in his head when he signed my name to his disaster. "Patricia," I said, "would you host a family meeting at your house? Sunday afternoon. I want to talk to everyone about my father's care." She agreed too quickly. I could hear the relief in her voice, the story already forming. The lost daughter returns, the addict repents, the family heals. She was giving me the stage I needed. I spent the next 2 days organizing. I bought a 3-ring binder and sheet protectors. I made copies at a FedEx office across town, paying cash so there would be no trail. I highlighted the key lines in yellow, the date on the beneficiary form, the transfers to Chelsea, the second mortgage, the negative balances. I called my cousin Michael, the one who hadn't answered my text 7 years ago. He was surprised to hear from me, wary. I kept it short. "Sunday, Patricia's house, 2 o'clock, I need you there." "Why?" "Because you believed them," I said, "and I need you to see what you believed." He didn't promise to come, but he didn't say no. On Saturday, I drove past my old neighborhood. I didn't stop. I just wanted to see the house, the one my grandparents had paid off, the one my parents had mortgaged to fund Chelsea's life. The porch light was on. Someone was home. I kept driving. That night, I laid out my clothes for Sunday. Black pants, gray blouse, closed-toe shoes. I wanted to look like what I was, a professional woman with documents and a purpose. Not the broken addict from their story, not the prodigal daughter crawling back. I wanted to look like the truth. Sunday morning, I woke at 5 a.m. without an alarm. I made coffee and sat with the binder on my lap, page by page, until I knew every number by heart. The $7,800 for Florence, the $140,000 second mortgage, the $89,000 in current medical debt, the $50,000 life insurance policy with my name on it, signed January 14, 2019. I dressed carefully. I ate nothing. I drove to Patricia's house with the binder on the passenger seat, weighted down by my wallet so it wouldn't slide. The house was the same as I remembered. Yellow siding, black shutters, a porch swing that squeaked. I parked on the street instead of the driveway. I wanted an easy exit. Patricia met me at the door. She was 63, my mother's older sister, the one who had sent me the rehab text 7 years ago. She hugged me before I could stop her. I smelled her perfume, something powdery and familiar from childhood. "Dana," she whispered, "you look wonderful, healthy." She meant, "You don't look like an addict." I didn't answer. The kitchen was already full. My mother sat at the head of the table, wearing the blue cardigan she always wore to serious events. Chelsea was beside her, scrolling on her phone. Two of my uncles, Robert and James, sat against the wall with coffee cups. They were my mother's brothers, both retired, both still living in the same town where they'd grown up, and my father was on speakerphone from his room at Westbrook. I could hear the machine beeping in the background, the rhythmic reminder of his monitored heart. "Dana," my mother said. She didn't stand. "You came." I was invited. I took the empty chair at the far end of the table, facing my mother. The binder went on my lap. I didn't open it yet. "We're here to discuss your father's care," my mother continued. "The doctors say he needs a decision, aggressive treatment or comfort care. Aggressive means more surgeries, more recovery, more cost. Comfort means," she paused, arranged her face, "we let him go with dignity." "How much does aggressive treatment cost?" I asked. My mother waved her hand. "Insurance covers some. The hospital has programs. What matters is what's best for your father." "Insurance covers some," I repeated. "And the rest?" Silence. On the phone, my father's breathing was audible, wet and careful. "That's why we need you," Chelsea said, not looking up from her phone. "You're the only one with savings. Mom told me you have some job now. You can help." "Help," I said. "You're his daughter," my mother said. "This is your chance to make up for the past, to be part of this family again." I looked at the faces around the table. Patricia, hopeful. Robert and James, uncomfortable, looking at their coffee. Chelsea, bored, waiting for this to be over so she could leave. My mother performing her role as the long-suffering wife of a wayward daughter. And my father, breathing on the phone, saying nothing. I opened the binder. I didn't look down at it. I kept my eyes on my mother. "Before we discuss my money," I said, "I have a question for Dad." "Dana," my mother started. "Dad," I spoke toward the phone. "Why did you make me your sole beneficiary 3 days before Mom kicked me out?" The room went still. Chelsea's thumb stopped scrolling. "What?" my mother said. I lifted the first page from my binder, the beneficiary form with the date highlighted in yellow. "January 14, 2019. You signed this, Dad. 3 days later, Mom threw me out for refusing to pay for Chelsea's trip. A week after that, everyone in this family was told I was in rehab for drug addiction." I laid the form on the table. "I'm curious. When you signed my name to your life insurance, did you already know what story they were going to tell about me?" My father's breathing continued. No words. "Dana, this isn't the time," my mother began. "Then when is the time?" I asked. "I've waited 7 years. I've let you tell everyone I was a broken thing, a shameful secret, while you drained your accounts and mortgaged your house to keep Chelsea in yoga classes and business schemes." I pulled out the next pages. Bank statements. Transfer records. $17,000 to Chelsea in 2019 alone. While you were telling people I was in rehab, you were paying for her apartment in Florence. While you were cutting me off, you were taking out a second mortgage to cover her car repairs. I spread the papers across the table. My uncles leaned forward despite themselves. Patricia put her hand to her mouth. "This is the family I was supposed to come back to," I said. "A father who made me his legal safety net while letting them destroy my name. A mother who threw me out for $8,000, then spent $140,000 on a house she'll lose anyway. A sister who took every dollar and never asked where it came from." I stood up. The chair scraped against the linoleum. "I'm not signing anything," I said. "I'm not paying for anything. You wanted me to be the responsible one. Here I am, being responsible. I'm showing everyone exactly what you've been doing." I looked at the phone. "Dad, you chose me in secret because you knew they'd fail you. You knew Chelsea would spend everything. You knew Mom would sign anything to keep the peace. You needed someone who would actually handle the hard parts." I paused. "But you didn't want me back. You just wanted me available, silent, grateful to be needed." I closed the binder. I left the papers on the table. "Chelsea's the beneficiary now," I said. "Let her figure it out." I walked out of the kitchen. Behind me, I heard my mother's voice rise, then crack. I heard Patricia say my name. I heard one of my uncles, James, I think, say "Jesus Christ" in a tone I'd never heard from him before. I got in my car. I didn't cry. I didn't speed. I drove home with my hands steady on the wheel, and I didn't look back. I didn't go home. I drove to a diner on the highway, the kind with laminated menus and coffee that tastes like it's been sitting since morning. I sat in a booth facing the door and I waited for my hands to stop shaking. They didn't. I ordered toast I didn't eat and watched the parking lot through the window. My phone buzzed at 4:17 p.m. Patricia. I let it go to voicemail. Then Robert. Then James. Then Patricia again. I listened to none of them. I knew what they would say. I had heard it before in different words from different mouths. "Your mother is upset. Your father is asking for you. You need to think about what you've done." I had thought about what I'd done. For 7 years, I had thought about nothing else. At 6:30, I drove to a hotel 20 miles away, paid cash for a room, and slept with the lights on. I dreamed of my father's signature on the beneficiary form, the loop of the Y in my name, the date that proved he had known. The next morning, I had 17 missed calls and 4 voicemails. I listened to one from James, my mother's younger brother. He had been at the table. He had seen the papers. "Dana, it's James. I need to talk to you. I need to understand what we saw yesterday. Your mother is saying you forged documents, that you're lying, that you've been unstable for years, but I saw the dates. I saw the bank statements. I need to know what else you have." I saved his number. I didn't call back. I spent Monday at a law office in the city, paying for an hour of consultation with a family attorney who specialized in medical proxy disputes. I told her everything. The exile, the rehab lie, the beneficiary form, the financial documents. She listened without interrupting. "You have no legal obligation to act as his proxy," she said. "The designation can be declined. The beneficiary status is separate. You can inherit without managing his care. But if you decline the proxy role, the decision-making falls to the next of kin, your mother presumably. She'll choose comfort care," I said. "Not because it's what he wants, because it's cheaper." The attorney nodded. "That's not your concern legally. Morally," she paused, "that's yours to carry or not." I went back to my apartment. The file box was still on my kitchen table. I sat with it for 2 hours, then I made 2 phone calls. The first was to Gloria Chen at Westbrook. "I'm declining the medical proxy designation," I said. "I want it in writing. I want it in his file today." She was quiet. "Your sister has been calling. She's been asking about the policy limits, about timelines. She's been quite insistent." "She's not the proxy," I said. "She never will be. Make sure your staff knows that." The second call was to Patricia. She answered on the first ring. "Dana, thank God, your mother is. I'm coming back," I said. "Sunday, 2 o'clock, same place." I want everyone there who was there yesterday, plus anyone else you think should hear this. Dana, I don't know if that's Patricia. I used her name like a door closing. You believed them for 7 years. You sent me a text about rehab. You never asked why I didn't call back. You never asked why a 19-year-old girl with a full-time job and no history of drug use would suddenly disappear into addiction. I paused. You owe me this. You owe me the room. She agreed. I heard it in her voice, the shift from managing to managed. The story was moving and she could feel it. I spent the week preparing. I made copies of everything. I organized the documents into sequences: the financial collapse, the sister's withdrawals, the father's secret designation, the lie that covered it all. I practiced what I would say, not for effect, for clarity. I wanted no hesitation, no emotion that could be mistaken for instability. On Thursday, James called again. This time I answered. I looked at the house, he said. Your parents' house, I drove by. There's a for sale sign in the yard. Your mother didn't tell anyone. She's been telling us they're fine, they're managing. Your father just needs rest. She's been telling you that for 7 years, I said, about everything. He was quiet. I'm coming Sunday, he said. I'm bringing my wife, and I'm bringing something your mother doesn't know I have. What? A letter, he said. From your father, dated January 2019. He sent it to me after you left. He asked me to hold it. He said I might need it someday if things got bad. I gripped the phone. What does it say? I haven't opened it, James said. I thought about it 100 times. I almost threw it away. But I kept it, and now I need to know why. Sunday. The word felt like a countdown and a destination. I hung up and I looked at the papers spread across my table, the story of my family in numbers and signatures and dates. They had built a lie to protect themselves. I had built a life in spite of it. Now I was going back to the place where the lie lived, and I was going to bring the truth into the room where they had gathered to judge me. I didn't sleep Saturday night. I didn't need to. I was already awake in the way that matters. I arrived at Patricia's house at 1:47 p.m. I wanted to be early. I wanted to choose my seat, to settle my papers, to watch them come in one by one and see where they chose to stand. Patricia opened the door with red eyes. She hadn't slept. I could see it in the way she held herself, too careful, like she was afraid of breaking something. They're in the kitchen, she said. Your mother brought your father on the tablet, video call, she wanted him to see. I nodded. I didn't thank her. I walked past her to the kitchen with my binder under my arm and my file box in my hand. The room had rearranged itself. My mother sat at the head of the table again, but her position felt different now, defensive. Chelsea was beside her, dressed in a sweater I recognized, one I'd left behind 7 years ago, thin and pilled at the cuffs. She saw me notice and pulled the sleeve down. James sat at the far end where I had sat. His wife, Linda, was beside him. Robert was against the wall again, but his posture had changed. He was leaning forward, watching the door, waiting. And on the tablet, propped against the salt shaker, was my father. He looked smaller than I remembered. The hospital gown, the oxygen tube, the gray skin, but his eyes were open. He was watching. Dana, my mother said. Her voice had that tone, the one from my childhood, the one that meant I was about to disappoint her. We agreed to talk, calmly, as a family. I agreed to come, I said. I set the file box on the table and took the chair across from her, facing the tablet. I didn't agree to be calm, I agreed to be honest. I opened the box. I took out the first folder. I didn't look at my father on the screen. I would address him when I was ready. 7 years ago, I said, I was thrown out of this family for refusing to give $8,000 to my sister. Within a week, every person in this room was told I was in drug rehabilitation. That was a lie. I want to be clear about that before we continue. There was no drug problem. There was no rehab. There was only a daughter who said no and parents who needed a story that made them look like victims instead of thieves. Dana, my mother started. I'm not finished. I kept my voice level. I had practiced this. I disappeared. I built a life. I didn't contact any of you because I understood something that took me years to fully see. You needed me to be the broken one. It made your choices cleaner. It made Chelsea's needs more urgent. It made your sacrifices more noble. I looked at Patricia, at Robert, at Linda. You all believed it. Some of you still want to believe it because the alternative is uncomfortable. I opened the first folder. But I have documents now. I have proof of what was really happening. And I'm going to show you, page by page, what my father knew and when he knew it. I laid the beneficiary form on the table. January 14, 2019. 3 days before I was removed from this family, my father designated me as his sole beneficiary and medical proxy. He signed this knowing that I would soon be erased from the story. He signed this while planning to let my mother destroy my reputation to protect my sister's vacation. I slid the form toward James. He picked it up, read the date, and his face changed. He looked at my father on the tablet. "Harold, is this real?" My father's mouth moved. No sound came. His eyes stayed on me. "Let me explain what this means," I continued. He knew. He looked at the family finances. I pulled out the bank statements, and he saw where they were headed. He saw Chelsea's spending. He saw my mother's enabling. He knew they would drain everything and leave him with nothing. I spread the statements across the table. So he chose me, secretly, the responsible one, the one who could actually manage a crisis. And then he let them throw me away because keeping me would have meant admitting what they were. My mother stood up. This is twisted. You're twisting everything. Your father was trying to protect you. He knew you were struggling. He wanted to make sure you were provided for. Protect me, I laughed. It came out sharp, almost soundless. He never contacted me, not once in 7 years. He let me believe I was dead to this family while keeping me legally tethered to his disaster. I pulled out the second mortgage papers. Look at this. March 2019. $60,000 borrowed against the house. Do you know what the first payment was used for? Chelsea's apartment in Florence, the apartment she needed for her mental health. I turned the paper so they could see the transfer record. While you were all pitying the addict daughter in rehab, my mother was wiring money to Italy. While you were praying for my recovery, they were cashing out my grandparents' legacy to fund my sister's gap year. Robert leaned forward. He picked up the bank statement, frowning. "Patty," he said to my mother, "is this real?" "Of course it's not, she's making it look." "It's real," James said. He had opened the letter. The one my father had sent him in 2019. He held it up, his hand trembling slightly. "Harold sent this to me. January 16, 2019. 2 days after he signed that beneficiary form, he asked me to hold it. He said." James read aloud, "If something happens to me, if the family falls apart, give this to whoever is left standing. I made the wrong choice. I chose peace over truth. Dana was right. She was always right." The room went silent. My mother's mouth opened, closed. On the tablet, my father's eyes were wet. "He knew," James said. He looked at my mother with something I'd never seen from him before, contempt. "He knew what you were doing. He knew what Chelsea was. He protected Dana in the only way he could, and then he let you destroy her anyway." "James," my mother started. "No." He stood up. He looked at Robert, at Patricia, at Linda. "We believed them. We sent her texts about rehab. We prayed for her recovery. We never asked why a girl with a job and an apartment would suddenly disappear." He turned to me. "I'm sorry. I don't know if that means anything, but I'm sorry." He walked out. Linda followed him, but she paused at my chair. She put her hand on my shoulder briefly and squeezed. Robert was still holding the bank statement. He looked at my mother with the same expression he'd worn at family dinners when someone told a joke that went too far. Disappointment, embarrassment. "Patty," he said, "the house, Grandma's house, you mortgaged it." "For Chelsea," my mother said. Her voice had gone high, defensive. "For her health, for her future. You don't understand what it's been like, having a daughter who..." "Who what?" I asked. Worked, who saved, who refused to be emptied. Chelsea stood up. She had been silent through everything, but now her face was red, her hands shaking. This is insane. You're insane. You disappear for 7 years and then you come back with papers, with stories, with this. She gestured at the tablet at our father, this performance. You're doing this for attention. You're doing this because you're jealous that mom and dad actually loved me. I looked at her. I really looked. The sweater I'd left behind. The phone in her hand, the newest model, bought with money I could trace through the statements on the table. The entitlement that came from never being told no. They didn't love you, I said. They fed you, they indulged you. They mortgaged their future and mine to keep you from feeling the consequences of your own choices. That's not love, that's fear. And now they're bankrupt and dad is dying and there's no one left to drain. I closed the binder. Except maybe you. You want to be the responsible daughter now. You want to make the hard choices. The hospital bills are $89,000 and climbing. The house is in foreclosure. The life insurance is $50,000 and it's in my name. I stood up. I looked at my father on the tablet. His eyes were closed now, whether from exhaustion or shame I couldn't tell. I'm declining the proxy designation, I said. I'm declining the responsibility. You wanted me back. Here I am, unbroken, unashamed, and completely unwilling to save you from the mess you made. I picked up my file box. I left the papers on the table, spread like evidence at a trial. I walked to the door. Dana, Patricia said, her voice was small. What do we do now? I turned back. The room looked different from this angle. My mother slumped in her chair, Chelsea staring at her phone, not seeing anything. Robert gathering the papers, his face grim, James's empty chair, and my father breathing on the screen alone with his machines. You do what you've always done, I said. You figure it out without me. I walked out. I didn't look back. I got in my car and I drove away, and for the first time in 7 years, I didn't check my rearview mirror. I drove for 40 minutes before I realized I didn't know where I was going. The highway signs were unfamiliar. I pulled into a rest stop, the same kind where I'd slept 7 years ago, and I sat with the engine running until my breathing matched the rhythm of the car. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. It buzzed again. I turned it face down on the passenger seat. I thought about my father on the tablet, his eyes closed, the oxygen tube. I thought about the letter James had read, the admission I'd never expected to hear. Dana was right. She was always right. Words I'd wanted at 19 delivered 7 years too late to the wrong audience in the wrong room. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt empty, the way a house feels after movers have taken everything, even the echoes. I drove home. I took the long way, through towns I'd never seen, past farms and strip malls and the ordinary life I'd been building while they told their story about me. I arrived after dark. My apartment was quiet. The file box sat on my kitchen table where I'd left it. I slept for 11 hours. On Monday, I went to work. I answered emails. I sat in meetings. No one knew where I'd been. No one knew what I'd done. I was Dana from operations, competent and unremarkable, and that was exactly how I wanted it. The calls started Tuesday. Patricia first. She left a voicemail I didn't return. Then Robert, his voice gruff, saying he wanted to talk about what comes next. I saved the message. I didn't call back. On Wednesday, James sent a text. Your mother moved your father to Comfort Care yesterday. Chelsea is trying to access the life insurance. She's claiming you manipulated your father. I told her I'd testify about the letter if she tries. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back, you don't need to protect me, I have the documents. His reply came in seconds, I'm not protecting you, I'm telling the truth, there's a difference. I put the phone down. I looked at my apartment, my life, the careful structure I'd built from nothing. I thought about the word testify, about witnesses, about truth becoming a weapon I hadn't asked for. On Thursday, Gloria Chen called from Westbrook. Your sister has been attempting to file claims against the estate, she said. She's been told she has no standing. She's become persistent. Persistent how? Threats of legal action, accusations of fraud. She's contacted 3 attorneys, none have taken her case. A pause. Your father passed this morning. I'm sorry to inform you by phone. Your mother requested that you not be notified, but I felt you had the right to know. I sat down. The floor was hard against my knees. I hadn't decided how I felt about him. I still haven't. Thank you, I said. The funeral arrangements are being handled by your mother. I don't know if you'll be informed. It doesn't matter, I said, and I meant it. I hung up and I sat on my floor for an hour, not crying, just breathing. Just being present for the end of something that had ended 7 years ago in a different room with a duffel bag and a silence that swallowed everything. On Friday, I went to Patricia's house. I didn't call ahead. I knocked, and she opened the door with the same red eyes, the same careful posture. I wanted to see you, she said. I've been trying to reach you. I know. She stepped aside. I walked in. The kitchen was different. The papers were gone. The table was set with coffee cups, 3 of them, steam still rising. James is coming, she said. Robert, too. We wanted to talk, to explain. There's nothing to explain, I said. You believed a story that made sense to you. I was the responsible one, so I could handle the damage. Chelsea was the fragile one, so she needed protection. My parents were the victims of a wayward daughter. The story worked. It just wasn't true. She poured coffee I didn't want. Your mother is saying you destroyed the family. She's telling everyone you came back with forged documents, that you're mentally unstable, that your father's death is your fault. I know. James is telling people about the letter. Robert looked up the mortgage records. They're not defending her anymore. Patricia's voice cracked. I didn't defend you either, not then, not now, I just watched. I looked at her, at the kitchen where I'd laid my evidence, at the aunt who'd sent me a text about rehab and never asked why I didn't correct her. You watched, I said. That's what you did, that's what you all did. James arrived. Then Robert. We sat around the table, the 4 of us, and they told me what had happened after I left. My mother's collapse, Chelsea's frantic calls to attorneys, the relatives who stopped answering when they heard the full story. The funeral my mother was planning for a man whose secrets had finally outlived him. I listened. I didn't forgive. I didn't need to. Forgiveness is a gift I give when I'm ready, and I wasn't ready. I might never be, but I heard them. I let them speak the truth they'd avoided for 7 years. That was enough for now. On Saturday, I went to the funeral home. I didn't go inside. I sat in my car across the street and I watched people arrive. My mother in black, leaning on a man I didn't recognize. Chelsea on her phone, looking bored. A few others, distant relatives, faces I barely remembered. I didn't stay for the service. I didn't need to mourn him in public. I had already mourned the father I thought I had, years ago, in the dark of a Walmart parking lot, alone with the knowledge that he wouldn't stop what was coming. I drove away. I went home. I opened my file box and I took out the beneficiary form, the one with my name and the date that proved everything. I looked at it for a long time. Then I put it in my safe deposit box with my other important papers, and I closed the door on that part of my life. This morning, I received a letter from an attorney. My father's estate, what little remains after debts, will be settled in 6 months. The life insurance is mine. I don't know what I'll do with it. Maybe donate it to a shelter for young people with nowhere to go. Maybe keep it as the emergency fund it was always meant to be. I haven't decided. What I decided, finally, was to tell this story. To speak the truth into a camera, to strangers, to anyone who needs to hear that the responsible daughter isn't always the broken one. That silence isn't consent. That you can disappear and still be found, not by the people who lost you, but by yourself. I went back to Patricia's house last Sunday. Not to confront, not to accuse, just to sit in her kitchen one more time to see the table where the lie finally broke, to leave something behind. I left the papers. The whole stack, organized in their folders, the story of my family in numbers and signatures. I left them on the table, heavy with everything they contained, and I walked out without looking back. The door closed behind me. The afternoon was bright and cold. I got in my car and I drove home to the life I built, the one with my name on the lease and my hands steady on the wheel. I'm Dana. I'm 26. I'm not in rehab, I never was. And I'm finally completely free.